appreciate all you're doing.
Just how unconstitutional and Kafkaesque the CPS is.
Right. Well, it is unconstitutional, and I'm sure you have many listeners that know that children are being taken away from their parents in a ruthless kind of behavior by caseworkers and social workers and investigators, and the bureaucracy is very huge. That also includes lawyers and judges and therapists and others who take these children from their parents without a cause. And of course, we know that money is being made because of this, and I'm convinced, without a shadow of a doubt, that the parents across this country need to be warned of the dangers. The Department of Child Protective Services has become a protected empire that we see going on around us, and it's built on taking children and separating families. This is not to say today that there are not those children who are really being abused, who need to be removed from the wretched situations that they may be in.
But it needs to be done through due process.
Yes, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the families that are having children removed from them with no cause, and then there is no due process available to them after this has happened. And in one county in my district, I had 37 families brought together one Saturday morning in the library to allow them to, without any press and without any Child Protective Services pressure there, to tell their stories. And it was absolutely unbelievable to hear these parents, single dads, single mothers, telling and other parents telling their stories of how their children had been picked up in the middle of the night, off of the school buses, out of schools, out of hospitals, even while they are nursing, and these families had never seen those children again. You have never seen such agony, such suffering. And it was very, very enlightening, that day was, when we saw what was happening in this one Child Protective Services department in one county in my district in Georgia. And not only that, but they had a separate business going on where they required all of these parents to come in multiple times and have drug tests. And they charged the parents every time, so they had a separate business going on. They had already made over $100,000 in this business.
Senator, so when did you begin to discover these horrors, and what has your fight been like?
Well, it has been horrible. It really has. And let me just say up front here now that my writing the corrupt business of Child Protective Services, which you probably have read at some point or another, that prompted me, of course, to give the speech at Eagle Forum for the conference. I lost my Senate seat over this. And let me say that there are causes worth losing over, so it hasn't distressed me that much. It's just given me more time to work on this issue and other issues. But in calling around the country to other state representatives and senators, asking them would they help this family or that family that have been contacting me, they have told me that if they help, if they do anything, they will lose their job. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, it's a mafia.
And, of course, it cost me my Senate seat. But that's okay. That's okay. We're moving forward. We're exposing what is being done. And you mentioned a few minutes ago about the judges and the money. I wanted to share with you that the Census Bureau has reported that in 2002, $40 billion in transfer payments were made between households. That money is under the direction and the control of family court judges.
And that's only the tip of the iceberg. Of course,
that's right.
You break this down so well, but there's bounties on children's heads.
Yes, there are. As a matter of fact, we just learned a few days ago that an order had even been placed to one of our Child Protective Services departments for a particular kind of child that they wanted. So there is a bounty on these children. As a matter of fact, when you break it down as to exactly what is happening to promote these financial incentives, you have to go back to the Adoption and the Safe Families Act that was set in motion in 1974 by Walter Mondale, and then later was expanded upon by President Bill Clinton in 1997. And what this act did is it offered cash bonuses to the states for every child they adopted out of foster care. So in order to receive the adoption incentive bonuses, local Child Protective Services need more children. They must have merchandise, which is the children, that sells. And you must have plenty so that the buyer can choose. Some counties are known to give $4,000 to $6,000 bonus for each child adopted out to strangers, and an additional $2,000 for special needs children. And of course, this money just continues to follow the child and follow the child for years and years and years. And the employees work to keep those federal dollars flowing.
And that's why 67% of children nationally, and that happens to be the average in Texas as well, we have the state hearings on this, are on multiple psychotropic drugs because once they give them a designation, then the cash amount goes way up.
That's right. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. There's a baseline number. There's a baseline number of expected adoptions based on population for each state. For every child that DHR or Child Protective Services or whatever it's called in your particular state can get adopted, there's this bonus of $4,000 to $6,000.
Tell us about the bounties on people's children.
Certainly, these children come with bounties because we know that the incentives are available there. The federal incentives are available, and they can be $4,000 or $6,000. But actually, there is a beginning formula in which each bonus is multiplied. And this sounds complicated. It really isn't, but this is what the states go by. Each bonus is multiplied by the percentage that the state has managed to exceed its baseline adoption number. Therefore, the states and local communities work hard to reach their goals for increased numbers of adoptions for children in foster care. So, therefore, you get to the end of the year and a Child Protective Services department in some state or in a county there in the state may not have taken as many children as they need to, and they have their formula or their bonus increases on the wall, and it tells exactly how many more children they need by the end of the year.
So it's just like a sales shop at a car dealership. They got the sales manager, and you're not going to reach your goal, Bob.
That's exactly right.
The forms aren't just lies. They're so lazy and so criminal, they don't even care. They just use old forms and on. Have you ever seen that, Senator?
I do know that they take children right out of the hospitals, and sometimes they're 1 or 2 days old. But the caseworkers and social workers oftentimes, very often, are guilty of fraud, and they do withhold the evidence, and they fabricate the evidence. And their whole goal is to terminate the parental right of the parents. And parents are just left at the mercy. And all of this in the best interest of the child, those words, in the best interest of the child, have been redefined. It's not in the best interest of the child. The bottom line is taking the children for money.
And the law was written, for those that don't know, I'd like you to speak to this because I know you're an expert on it, so you can speak to it. It was written to where, we're supposed to keep the family together and give it to grandparents or the other spouse. They advertise on TV to tattle. The grandparents go and tattle. And the law was written, and then they don't get the children 9 times out of 10. Yes.
There are lots of grandparents that cannot get their grandchildren, even when it would be best if say the parents are on drugs. Someone does need to have access to those children, but oftentimes the grandparents are turned down. Now, there is a policy that you're supposed to secure a relative immediately for those parents, but oftentimes that relative is never sought out. The grandparents are never given the children. And a stranger then comes in and takes over the lives of those children.
And, ma'am,
and there is absolutely no financial resource or no real drive to unite the family back together or to keep them together or to provide any effective care for the family. That is completely gone. Now it's destroying the family.
Foster parents being 5 times more likely to abuse children than any other group.
You're exactly right. The children are much more likely to be abused in foster care than at home with their own parents. The beginning of this journey for me began with a grandmother who was trying to get her 2 granddaughters in one of the counties in my district. The Child Protective Services had removed the 2 little girls from their mother, who was very young, and they based it on the fact that there was an unopened can of beer in the front of her car. They took these 2 little girls over to an adjoining county, put them in foster home over there where they had 18 children, all kinds of little rooms downstairs in the lower level of this home. And one of the caseworkers in that county was a pedophile.
Of course.
Who lived in that home and regularly sexually molested the children who were in the foster care.
Ugh.
When this came up in court, I went to court with this grandmother and sat in the back of the courtroom. And we had a good attorney that day who pulled the walls down, who cross-examined one of the older children in this foster home, and she admitted that there was an inappropriate relationship between the foster mother and the caseworker. And then it got a little worse, and then the juvenile court judge got all nervous and said, "Counsel, meet me in my chambers," and they went out and stayed 5 minutes and came back, and our attorney just looked at us and out loud said, "It's nothing but legal kidnapping." That's all it is, legal kidnapping. But let me tell you what happened. It's called defacts in Georgia, and we pressed and pressed and pressed. The judge said those children will be removed within a week. Well, a week was gone, 10 days was gone, the children were still there. We kept leaning on them to get those children out of there. And out of the blue, someone called this grandmother in Florida to tell her that they were bringing the children from Georgia to the state line. Would she drive up to pick them up? She, of course, said she would be there. She got the children. They didn't have any clothes. One was not wearing shoes. She took them home, and within 3 days, that juvenile court judge drew up a new order, and she gave the 2 little girls to their father, who lived on the West Coast, who had never been involved in their lives, and who was involved in adult entertainment.
Well, it's better than that in that death pit down there in that house with all those little kids. Now,
right.
When you get down to it, you got a couple groups. You got parents that were, you've got children who were abused, who think that all parents are abusive and they're gonna punish the family. So there's those mentally ill people. Then there's pedophiles who want access to kids, and then there's scumbags that just want money. And I got to say, that's basically what makes up CPS in my experience. And I think, from what I've seen, I'd probably say 30% of them are pedophiles. And and the problem is this crime rate, this crime spree is growing.
Yes,
so,
it is.
So can you comment on that? And where is this going? How do we stop them?
Well, I would say that there are definitely pedophiles in the system. There's no question about that, because we know where there's children, there are pedophiles. They're in schools and they're in churches and they're everywhere where they can get their hands on children. So we know that that's true. And it's got to be brought to an end. It's got to be completely exposed for what it is. And in my opinion, it needs to completely be dissolved. I don't see any good left in Child Protective Services. As far as picking up a child that's being totally abused, the police could do that just as well as Child Protective Services.
And then you have due process. The incredible thing is, the worse they get, the more money and power they get.
It appears that way. It appears that way. But all of it is based on money, and that's where it's going to have to be cut off. The federal incentives have got to be cut off and be removed on a federal level in order to get this stopped. And
that's where we go now in the closing minutes we have left in this interview, Senator. and again, we can only commend you and pray for you in this fight, and then politically going after you. Specific orders for specific children that look a specific way. I mean, you've now saying you've discovered that.
Now arrives the hour of action.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it.
For depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury.
To subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws.
All experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed.
But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security.
We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
And we're going to take our country back from these people.
We will take back our constitutional God-given rights. You damn right. You damn right.
Now arrives the hour of...
You damn right. You damn right. States are profiting off the destruction of our families. What do we want? Justice! States are profiting off the destruction of our families. You damn right. States are profiting off the destruction of our families. What do we want? Justice! States are profiting off the destruction of our families.
And we're going to take our country back from these people.
You damn right. You damn right.
Now arrives the hour of action.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Monday, March 12th edition of the first annual in Clarkesville, Georgia, Remembrance of Nancy Scheafer event show. Live at 5, we're here with Belinda Hastings. Hello, Belinda. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing good, Ted.
Good. So, over the weekend, we've put the schedule together. It's pretty much done. So today, just so you all know, we're wrapping this up so we can, publish it in public. Locally. So if you've decided to come, if you want to speak, make sure to contact Belinda or myself, preferably Belinda because I'll just be transferring it to her anyways. If you want to speak by the end of this show, because tonight it's going to go out and to the people who are going to be printing it and dispersing it and putting it in the papers. So please contact her right away. Hey, Joel. Hey, Linda. Laura's with us. Laura's going to be speaking. So I talked with a girl, like I mentioned Friday, who ran away from CPS, and now she's pregnant years later, and CPS is already harassing her about her child, and she's married now, and they're very concerned about the welfare of their unborn child and don't think they're going to be attending after all, which I completely understand. It's too bad in a way, but obviously it's understandable, especially for the husband who hasn't been part of our community. So I don't, I'm really looking forward to seeing pictures, when the baby is born, and maybe in the future this young lady will speak. publicly.
What state are they in again, Ted?
North Carolina.
They're in North Carolina. Okay, well, that's one of my territories. So I think I looked up a little bit, watched some of the different posts on that particular family. But I do want to get in direct contact because Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, New York, Texas, Arizona, Missouri, and California are all states that we actively work in.
Cool.
So I actually have, I have a lot of reach in North Carolina. So I would like to be in direct communication with that family because there are ways to stop them from doing what they're doing to them. A couple letters ought to take care of that.
Yep.
Legal letterhead.
I'm sure they would appreciate the help. So.
Oh yeah, free of charge.
All right. If they're not listening, I'll get in touch with them.
Okay.
I could probably see on here if they are. Yes, and yep, Susan, that is the ID. If you already have Zoom, you just need to click join meeting and press that number, enter that number you just put on the screen in the comments. If you don't have Zoom, call in the phone number above that, 408-638-0968, and then type in that number, 376-657-800. And feel free to call in with any questions. So I don't even have the schedule up in front of me. I haven't even looked at it today because it's pretty much done. We only needed a couple of titles from a couple of different people, and look at that. Oh my goodness. Yep. Belinda's on top of it.
It's 3 pages long currently, without any exact times.
Right.
But it is, like I said, 3 pages long.
Are we going to be able to fit that in a flyer, or is that just... I don't know how you do it.
It can be fit on a 2-pager for sure. But I believe Joyce said she wanted to do something with the music.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So, but that's all fine. I can send this to her, and she can do her own print job, just so long as nothing is changed on this. I know she won't.
Oh, yeah.
And then she can incorporate her songs and everyone's songs into her distribution material.
Nice.
But this is going to be, at the end of this show, anyone who wants to be on the agenda needs to inbox me the proposed material that you want to speak on. We will not, under any circumstances, be allowing anyone to communicate or speak about Nancy's death directly. We're going for the purpose of honoring her works and bringing her works back to life.
Right. So if there's...
on a bigger platform. It's been alive for a long time, but it's time to relight the torch. So we want to make it very clear and remind people that we will not, under any circumstances, at the platform, and we would request that all participants refrain in the community setting at the park. Be mindful that this is Nancy's hometown and her home territory, maybe not necessarily her hometown, but her territory. And her family, she just have 2 children that live locally. And those children are in their 50s and 60s. And so we need to, I believe, 50s, I think. I think they're in their 50s. So we need to be careful and mindful of any communications of the death of Nancy and her husband.
Right. If there was any question about...
there's going to be a lot of ears.
Yes, exactly. If there was any question about what the family wanted, we have the answer. They want to celebrate their mother's life and their father's life. And and one thing that they mentioned was the funeral, and fringe groups and the conspiracy theories and all that have no place in their hometown. What happens in DC, whatever there, but if there's any question about what the family wants, it is to celebrate her life and move past the murder itself and how it happened. So far, that's what they want. You know, in the future, who knows? Like I said, before talking with them, we didn't know what they wanted, what their wishes were, and I mentioned, you know, if they wanted help reopening the case, you know, we'd be there and support them anyway, but that's not the direction they want to go. They want to move on with their lives. Like Belinda said, they're now getting into their senior years themselves, and they all have children. Some of them have grandchildren. You know, Nancy has great-grandchildren at this point. So that's what they want. So out of respect, the way if you wanted to word anything about Nancy's death, it's she's passed away, and not mention the word murder or anything like that. And you can imagine why. No matter what happened, their parents are gone, and in the eyes of the law, I mean, it's a horrible thought. It's a horrible thing to even say, but their father killed their mother, so that's something they don't want to talk about. You understand? You've got to understand that. And I don't even like saying it live on the show, but just to reiterate it, make sure everybody understands it's not what they want to see. They want to see people remembering what she did, remembering her great work and her passion, and celebrating her life. So that's what we're here to do, especially in Clarkesville, Georgia. And you know, I certainly don't tell anybody. I don't try to control anybody. Try to make people get along and work together. But even that, moving forward, that sometimes is a futile effort. But I would suggest everybody focus more on celebrating her life than
rehashing the death.
Thank you. Rehashing the death. Correct.
Right. That's okay. So I have a really good comprehensive list of all the people that want to come. Like I said, if we've got most of our heavy hitter speakers already on the list, there are a few that I would like to have seen come forth from back when Nancy was still around. Kristen Hansen, Dr. Shirley Moore, Ronaldo DeGallo, Tony Kitely, TK.
Yep.
There were a lot of people that are still activists that are a little more silent these days. They're not as aggressive. But
or
anyway, TK.
Yeah, he's got. I remember something medical he was concerned about, and apparently that's actually gotten worse, not better, from what I understand. So we all wish you well, Tony, and we love you. Hope you pull through this okay. And some of the people you mentioned don't even live in the country anymore.
Kathleen.
Right. And there's one other I talked to. Don't remember. She's in Britain, I believe. The other one, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but there's a couple. I was gonna say something else. Can we be given any info on Bruce? I know little about him. Yeah, I know little about him too. He was, like any partner, he was supportive, from what I understand, of all her efforts. And
Bruce was a financial advisor. That's what he did for a living. He was in financing and the investment industry.
Interesting.
He was obviously Nancy's biggest supporter, being as her husband. But that's really all there is to know. He's father, grandfather, husband. They really led a very normal life. Georgia is a pretty conservative place, the entire state. So, yeah. Led normal Southern Baptist lives.
You know what's interesting to me is when I was talking to John, he said that a lot of the political views there were Democratic. Even Nancy, starting off, was a Democrat, and then there was a shift in the early '90s or so, around the Clinton era, where people were really more focusing on what the Republicans had to say. And it's funny, if you look back through history, there really has been a shift. The Democrats are more Republican and the Republican are more Democratic than ever. You know, Hillary was a hawk. She was a war hawk. If you know, you would imagine that a Republican would be more warlike, but the Democrats, they just don't talk about it the same way. But they're usually the ones who are more focused on perpetuating overseas war. Anyways, I didn't mean to go into political stuff.
You don't say.
Well, it's interesting.
Talking about them dirty politics.
Yeah, yep, I know. Even like Sheriff Joe Terrell said, you know, now that I'm in politics, and then he said I could hear him rolling his eyes practically. You know, he's a sheriff, but you know, sheriffs are elected, and you have to deal with politics.
It's all about politics and religion.
Yep.
Every single bit of it.
Yeah, especially down that far south. I'm really looking forward to it. I love the feeling of community, and you get that, you know, you feel that in New England a lot. I remember it more in the past than I do now, and then living in Florida, I never really felt that feeling of community. And I know in smaller towns like Clarkesville, there is really this tight-knit sense of community. Everybody knows everybody, and I just love that. And I'm already falling in love with the area, just having visited there for one day or a day and a half, and now looking at pictures of the parks, the surrounding parks, because we're right on the edge of a national park, Tallulah Falls, and I love that name, like Tallulah, like the song "Come On Eileen," or that was Tallulah.
Come on, Eileen. Da, 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 da.
Sing it, Belinda. Come on, Eileen, Tallulah.
Is that what he says? Tallulah?
Tallulah in the song.
Tallulah.
It's Tallulah Falls.
Oh my gosh. If only we all knew the words of what we were singing back in the day. Sheesh.
Well, I had a friend in high school, Eileen, so maybe that's why I'm like, all right, what's the Eileen Mather?
Laura's asking, did Bruce attend church too? They were both members of Ebenezer Baptist Church.
Right.
Answer your question? Yes. So they're very, they were very connected in the church. So
Billy Elson, politics is just a fancy way of saying there ain't no money in doing it right. Well, it's an interesting point. One reason why, you know, abortion hadn't been taken care of, and it's actually interesting to me that gay marriage has been, because once you solve a problem, there's no money there's no money you can build for your stance on that issue. You know what I mean? So right now you can say, I'm pro-abortion, I'm pro-life, and people will donate to that specific cause. But once you solve it, you're not going to make any more money off of it. So right now, what we'd like to see is politicians bringing in donations for I'm pro-family rights. At least that would be a good start. And then get to the solving pretty quick. But yeah, if you're a politician looking for a platform to catapult off, the family rights movement might be your thing. Just an FYI.
Oh my goodness. Yes. You know, I was telling you earlier, this is for a lot of the parents that are being alienated from their children, grandparents who are and have been alienated from their children. I've been telling people for a long time that in many states, not all states, but a lot of states do have a criminal code against alienation. And it's readily referred to as how does the code read? Interfering with custody of the child.
Okay.
And it is a criminal activity. It is a criminal charge. So I got a wonderful phone call today from one of my clients. And this little lady got bamboozled into signing an MSA, a mediated settlement agreement. Laura, you'll appreciate this story. It's ridiculous. So she was referred to us by a mutual friend of ours who is a family friend of mine. He's a retired HPD officer of 33 years. So the little gal comes to us, and at the time she came to us, she had already signed an MSA, mediated settlement agreement, which is in the state of Texas, it's impossible nearly to get out of them. So anyway, she had the MSA signed. So we told her in the beginning, just chill your beans, calm down. You're going to have to ride this pony out because you've signed something that you're not going to be able to get out of. And everything that I told this little gal that would happen in her case happened. He screwed up. CPS got involved. We got down his throat. Now he is alienating mom from the child. So Saturday, the police came to the location where she was trying to pick her son up. And this was the second call over the weekend because mom's supposed to have the child for the spring break for this year. And finally, lo and behold, an officer shows up and he writes a report. He says, well, we are going to prosecute him for interfering with custody of the child. So Kim Ogg is our district attorney here in Harris County. So I'm going to be down her neck in the next few days, because if she does not ensure that these charges are brought forth and stick them, then she's going to have a whole bunch of activists at that little office over there in Houston. So it's an exciting thing because it's now, you've got to push the criminal charge in your state. If your state criminal code allows for parent alienation, and I do have the list, I have a complete chart that I've posted in the past, you've got to pound your pavements. You've got to go to the district attorney's office. You've got to go to the chief of police, and you've got to threaten to sue them if they do not prosecute these parent alienation. What we call is parent alienation. What the code calls it, is different things across the nation. Basically, it's interfering with the custody and or visitation of the child. Right. It's a criminal act. Make it stick in your county, in your town. You live on the side of a mountain, make it stick on the high top of the mountain. Go to the people that make the rules, make the laws, and who enforce the laws. District attorneys, your county attorney, your district attorney, whatever it's called in your state and your region, you need to be blowing their phone up. Get 5 to 10 more activists in your town. Everybody likes to play on Facebook all day. Well, meet and greet people in your town that are being alienated and carry your asses to the courthouse, carry them to the governor's office, carry them to your local reps' offices. I mean, physically go. Mm-hmm. Go and knock on that door. I saw Dr. Shirley Moore. Dr. Shirley Moore, when I went to California years ago, had me come with her. She just looked at me and she said, Belinda, come on. That little lady is not this big around. She is a little teeny tiny old school black gal, and she is a little pistol. She walked right into the mayor's office and basically told everybody, hey, I'm here and I want to talk to so-and-so. And I'm going to tell you something, they let her in right away. They didn't want to deal with her. They didn't want they wanted to let her do what she was doing because she's persistent. And I encourage everyone to do the same thing in your local town. Don't be scared of them. They're there to help. I mean, you don't have to go in there and call them names or call anybody names or anything like that. But if you talk reasonably to them, the change is going to come. It is, I promise you.
Right. There's I wanted to ask about in Texas, are the criminal courts seeing parental alienation yet, or is it just like
not that I'm aware of, but we are going to be aware of it this year.
That would be nice.
Because you've got to push the code. They don't mind shoving the code down your neck, the family law code. So shove the criminal code up their tailpipe and make them stick to it.
Their beep.
Make them process the law.
So,
and if this is how you handle that, if they refuse to do it, you know what you do? You say, oh, you must like civil lawsuits. And you make sure you get the officers' names who are refusing to make formal reports. That's called negligence.
Awesome.
In any state.
Right.
Any state across this country, it's called negligence.
Because the ultimate...
Their name, their badge number, the date and time that you called to go get your go get your children with the custody order. Sue their asses.
Right. Because the ultimate goal is there's 3 things in the DSM-5 that prove that parental alienation or any alienation is child abuse. So once the DSM-5 recognizes child abuse itself as child abuse or parental alienation as child abuse, then that's criminal. It would automatically go to criminal court. The fear now with that is if it isn't criminal in the psychology world, then it's possible that family court and juvenile court will take jurisdiction over it, and just like they're now forcing people to choose therapists and GALs, possibly forcing different services, more services on you, making divorce or situations with CPS even more costly to the parents. Like Nancy said in her speech, if your children are taken in some states, whether there's any drugs related or not, they make you pay them to take drug tests. It's a separate organization. It's a separate for-profit company. The other thing I wanted to say is there's a few people over the weekend whose names popped in my head who I haven't reached out to. Rod McCall, Rosemary Dalton, and then the lady who makes the bracelets, what's her name? PAawareness.org. You got one of these back in this is the one I got in 2016. Shelley Toner. Shelley Toner.
Shelley, yeah.
That's it.
Nice lady. She had a bag of those things.
Yeah. I saw her again in Dallas last year. She's just the sweetest lady ever.
Well, to the jurisdiction issue, so you've got a case in family law court that is deciding custody. Once the custody is decided, then you get your order. Everybody knows this. This is the same across the country. It's not different in Texas. It's not different in Virginia, North Carolina. It's the same all across the country. So you get your court order awarding custody and visitation. That visitation, though, whether in Texas we have standard visitation orders, the state of Texas has decided for parents how much time is allocated for the non-custodial parent to see their children, which is more than 4 days a month.
Oh, is it?
Okay, we have a very good standard visitation order.
There's usually
here in Texas
an afternoon or 2 a week in there. Right.
No, we've got extended visitations for spring breaks, Christmas breaks, all that kind of stuff. So, but anyway, so you've got your visitation order. Once the criminal jurisdiction comes in when a parent, whether it's mom or dad, violates the visitation order. That's when you still have your family law jurisdiction, but then you have a criminal action.
Right.
And if the police And I know, Laura, you're saying don't go to the DA. It's a waste of time. I disagree with that very wholeheartedly. You have got to get the highest on the higher. That's what the Bible says in Ecclesiastes 5:8. If you see gross perverse injustice in the land, you go to higher authority and higher authority and higher authority. God said that for a reason, because eventually you're going to hit the top, and you just got to keep hitting it and nailing it until you get your result.
Yep.
But anyway, so you've got that criminal portion against the parent, the malfeasor parent.
Right.
The malfeasing twits. That's what I'm going to call them.
Twits.
Then you've got the civil aspect of it goes towards the police departments, the county, the city, whoever is not enforcing the law.
Mm-hmm.
It is negligence. And they are cohorts to the child abuse. I've been a civil litigation paralegal primarily all of my legal career. It is negligence. I don't care who says I don't care. It is negligence. And I promise you, if you file it the right way, you get the right attorney to file these lawsuits civilly and beat the door down to get the criminal charge. This is how you got to change it, folks.
Right.
All across the country. You have to do it. I can't personally go to each county and town in the United States.
Right. Yeah. If you
Been
file
there, done that. I have been there and I have done that. I have traveled by bus, boat, plane, train to go all across this country to help people.
Yeah.
Well, now you guys are going to do it. You're going to do it. I'm going to tell you how to do it, but you're going to do it. I don't care if you agree with me or not. I really don't. I have a 99.9% success ratio in our cases. Okay.
Awesome.
So
yeah,
you want to listen. You want to win.
If you open a federal civil rights case, that automatically opens a criminal case, because then somebody is liable. And if somebody broke your civil rights, there is criminal attached. So anytime you can go civilly, it's a good idea, because then the criminal part is already in the bag. So yeah,
either one can be a predecessor to the victory and win of the other one.
Yep.
Yeah, whether you start with a criminal charge or they refuse to file the criminal charge, then you go civilly.
Okay. Yep.
But either way, you go civil.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whether you got the criminal charge or not, you just file it civilly. That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because once it's sometimes finding a civil rights violation is easier than finding a criminal charge. But once that violation is there, something criminal happened to violate your rights. So it's like it's a snowball effect in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what do we what do we need? Is there anything specific you need to so before we start publishing this schedule? Is there any last minute things you need from people or me specifically?
Not really. I just need to make sure that everybody who wants to be on the list is on the list. If people don't show up or something happens and they're not able to make it, obviously we'll be able to manipulate the schedule in order to have last minute people come up.
Okay.
But for the purpose of getting this out to the mayor and chief of police and the family, local constituents of the Scheafer family, people that would want to be there. And then I'm kind of wondering whether this should go to the Department of Social Services there in the town. I don't know how many feathers we want to ruffle.
I'll leave that up to you. I don't mind ruffling feathers.
I'm a ruffler when it comes to this topic.
As long as you're polite,
Yeah,
about it. What you're doing is legal, So whether people like it or not makes no difference. I was going to send it as a formal invitation. Oh yeah.
Yeah, like an email invitation.
Right. Well, I did contact. You're right. I mean, I contacted one former senator who actually ran against Nancy Scheafer, and her son picked up. So I talked with her son, and although I wasn't sure the reaction I was going to get, because the information I was given made me think that this senator that Nancy ran against had good things to say about Nancy, but come to find out that wasn't the case. And so I talked to her son first, and that was an interesting conversation. But the thing is as long as you're polite, then it's a good conversation, whether they agreed with Nancy. And here's the thing. That senator agreed with what Nancy was doing for families. Yeah. Whether she liked her on a personal level or not doesn't matter, and she said she won't be attending the event. But this is the person that was a beat down, drag out campaign, from what I understand, back when Nancy and her were running against each other. So there's still some hard feelings there, apparently.
Oh my goodness, her little heart's broke.
But that's the thing is, if it was a good I had a great conversation with her son and herself, and as long as you're polite and you thank them for their time, they can't give you a hard time for doing what you're doing. What we're doing is the right thing to do. It's good for humanity.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Yep.
That's a good way to put it.
Yep. That was.
Well, it's a serious situation. It's a very serious situation. And people are not being taken as serious as they should be in these cases. But I'm not going to go into the big picture reveal, but I can guarantee you within about 12 to 18 months, you're going to see something really big happen across this entire nation that's going to put such a big dent in the Department of Social Services all across the nation, different states. There's some things going on.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not at liberty to discuss, but I can tell you that it's going to change. The system is going to change. It's going to. Anytime God has his hands on something, guess what? Stuff changes. And there's too many of us who are definitely God-fearing, God-loving, God-obedient men and women of God that are all in the midst of this situation. And it takes God's people to make things change in a way of what we're doing. Moses led millions of people out of Egypt. Come on now. I mean, it's real. It's real life Egyptian stuff. God is setting his people free. He is setting these kids free. That's why we initially named the coalition Free the Children Coalition, because God told me, free my children. He said, I'm freeing my children. You're going to help free my children. I said, oh, okay.
I love it.
Okay. Got it, Captain.
I still have.
It's a serious thing. It's very serious.
You got to remember to put your emblem up here.
Oh, okay. That's the secondary organization, and that's Citizens Commission on Children's Rights. We were first formed as Free the Children Coalition.
Okay.
And then when we formally incorporated, it was incorporated as Citizens Commission on Children's Rights.
I see.
Yeah. So, but anyway, it's always been about the children. It's always been about the family unit. So anyone can go to freethechildrencoalition.webs.com and you can see the entire, a lot of this stuff that is in Nancy's memorandums, that is direct intel that we gave her.
Right.
You can look at the date. You can look at the copyright date on our website, 2006. And you're going to see the exact same information on our website that Nancy Scheafer published. Mm-hmm. This is all information that I have been discussing with her for a long time prior to her passing. So
it's so interesting. It's interesting looking, really getting into all her different speeches and interviews, mm-hmm. and the way she speaks, it's like we were more ahead in 2010 than we are now in 2018 in some respects, having her around. And what are your feelings about the drop off that happened after her passing?
Well, the theory of her being murdered because of her activities and what she was doing, I'm not going to go into that right now. But when she did pass away, it shut a lot of people up. Yep. A lot of people went bye-bye. They were either scared or ticked off, for various reasons. A lot of people did drop off the map. Yep. And I'm not going to go into the theory, conspiracy of her death, but I am going to say that Nancy Scheafer was very heavily guarded. I'm going to put it like that. Okay. And so all that little, she died for this and that, blah, 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 is not neither here nor there.
Moot point.
But a lot of people just automatically presumed, oh, well, she was assassinated because of this work that she was doing. Okay. I get it. I understand why people would believe that and think that. And that's why a lot of people did go bye-bye. Right. You know, they were like, oh, well, screw this, you know, damn, they killed a senator. You know, these people, I mean, I've had my tires on my BMW slashed. I had my vehicle completely impounded because I was in another state waiting for my Texas tags to arrive to me because I was there on an extended visit. Mm-hmm. And my plates went dead. Well, them fools, they knew who I was. They pulled me as soon as I pulled out of a parking lot where they knew I was going to be, and they impounded my car. But what they didn't know is that they thought because I wasn't from there, I'm from Texas. Well, no, I'm originally from Virginia, North Carolina.
Right.
I know a lot of people. I've known a lot of people all my life. They didn't know that the people they were taking my car to was one of the dudes that was cashing a check for me from a law firm every week.
It's good to know
Old
people.
man Sawyer.
There you go.
You see, so God has always had the little pawns in place, you know, in the game of life and chess. And he has us in place.
Yeah.
He has all of us in place for a reason. He connects people for a reason. And, you know, as long as you're mindful of that, and remember, not one battle nor war that God has sent his people in to do, not a one of them did they lose.
Yep.
They didn't lose. God doesn't raise losers.
There you go.
He does not raise losers. He put us all in positions of what we've been through so that we will get out there and beat the streets and beat the pavement and knock on the doors and pound the doors down of the people who are violating people's rights.
I agree. Yeah,
I mean, it's a no-brainer. You know, I'm not going to get real religious or anything, but hey, there you go, folks. That's what's going on.
Yeah, there's days sometimes you feel weary from the battle, but
my gosh, there's days I want to go ballistic. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I know.
Weary? I want to kill somebody sometimes. I'm like, oh gosh, well, I mean, you know.
That's what, you know. Well, Alex Jones said that same thing in his interview. I edited that out, though.
Well, anyway.
But no,
it's a human nature thing. If people mess with your family, with your children, that's in the state of Texas. We have something called the Castle Doctrine.
Castle Doctrine.
That means just look it up. State of Texas, the Castle Doctrine. Okay. It means if your family, if your homestead or anything is in danger, and someone is in your home, you have the right to protect your castle. And it's literally called the Castle Doctrine.
Also known as a castle law or a defensive habitation law, is a legal doctrine that designates a person's abode or any legal occupied place, e.g. vehicle or home, as a place in which that person has protections and immunities, permitting one in certain circumstances to use force.
That being a bullet.
Right. Right.
I'm just saying.
And that doesn't mean you have to kill them. That means
you have 4 seconds. If someone is in your home.
Right.
You know, and CPS comes in people's homes.
Right. It's like Kirk said this one time. If somebody's there without a warrant, you say you have 4 seconds to remove yourself from my property. I'm going to shoot you. That doesn't mean you're going to kill them, shoot them in a vital.
Oh, it's called a warning.
That might maybe in the leg. I don't do that. I don't own a gun. So.
Well, I don't either, but anyway.
But if I got one, they have these shotguns that are like Gatlin shotguns. Could you imagine that? Like sawing off a Gatlin shotgun. That'd be badass. If I owned a gun, that's what I'd get.
It sounds like somebody needs to go play paintball.
Right. Yeah, I should look into that. But I agree with you. It feels, you know, if you believe in a higher power, no matter what it is, somebody did this to us for a reason. It's the wrong thing. We know it's wrong, and we can't stop trying to find an answer. You keep going. You're trying to find an answer to why this happened to you, and what you end up finding is, oh, it happens to everybody. That's just the way it is. That's not a good enough answer. And somebody put us in this situation. The people who are continuing to fight and be as vocal as they feel is safe. They made you go through this to test you, because God knows it's wrong. God knows that humanity is suffering because of this, because of people profiting off of children and families. And this is how he ends it, you know, people like us continuing to move forward. So if you feel wary, if you feel scared, just breathe and keep moving forward, and God will show you his path, your path for him.
Well, he sends people like us who are educated, experienced, and have the legal knowledge and wherewithal to share and spread that information out. While states have different, they have a different process as far as what petitions and motions are allowed or not allowed. We file documents in different states, and the opposing counsel say, oh, well, this is fashioned after the state of Texas. We don't do that here. And I'm like, look, dude, thou shalt not is valid in every state. Thou shalt not steal people's kids. That's valid in every state, no matter how you want to look at it, dude.
Right.
Okay.
The Constitution is based on common law, which is based on basically the Ten Commandments. It really is.
And, well, the United States Constitution solidifies the corporate right on paper legally to have your family. You know, it's not even a state mandated or governmental mandated regulation, rule, policy, or anything else for a parent to have their children and to love their kids and protect them.
Right.
We don't have to have a state or federal law that says, well, you have the right to do this, this, and this.
It's already there.
Hello, I didn't need you to tell me that, and I don't need them to tell me, or them, you know, them being them, not you. But
I get it.
You know,
them.
We don't need that, and this is where the government is confused. You know,
the lower courts, more specifically.
Well, the government is of three tiers: the executive, judicial, and legislative. So the judicial, the legislative and judicial government, they don't, you know, they don't have to tell us what our rights are when they're stepping on our rights anyway. You know what I'm saying? You have the right and duty and care and responsibility, This is how the code is written in the state of Texas. Well, no shit, Sherlock. But if I have all those rights, why are you infringing on these people's rights to do so when your very laws say they have that right?
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
But anyway.
That's why the lower, I know. That's why, like the lower courts, you see the gold fringe around the flag. They're running themselves by procedures, guidance documents, doctrines like parents parenti, which was, you know, hundreds of years ago when, let's say, there was a fire and all the parents died, or there was a war and the parents died. Parents parenti, back in the days of kingdoms, that meant that now the children were property of the kingdom. We don't live in kingdoms anymore. Parens parenti is hundreds of years old. And it's parens parenti for those of you who haven't heard it. But we've been talking about it a little bit here and there the last couple of months, and it goes hand in hand with in the best interests of the child doctrine. They're both doctrines. And they're not laws. They're basically guidance documents, a doctrine is. And it comes down to your constitutional rights trump any guidance document or doctrine, but they can be used procedurally in court as long as it doesn't. But if one doctrine violates the Constitution, like parens parenti and in the best interests of the child, that you have to bring those up. And the lower courts don't recognize your constitutional rights as much as the Supreme Court and the federal court. Once you get that high, you no longer see the gold fringe, and they're constitutional based, Declaration of Independence based, more so than the lower courts. But we've got a couple minutes left. What do you think?
We had a criminal case up in Athens, Texas, which was stemming. Our client had a criminal action that was stemming off of a family law court transaction where mom's rights were being violated. So mom was a very intelligent young lady, and she knew what her rights were, her constitutional rights. And she kept telling the judge at the bench, well, this is my constitutional right. And he said, well, you know what? You have the constitutional right to go to jail for contempt of court.
Oh my God.
And he locked her up for like a week or two. And her boss man calls us through a referral. He calls me and he says, I've got one of my employees in jail over here. Can you do something about it? So we go over there, hustle up, me and a couple of attorneys and assistants. Soon as we walked in that courtroom and told everybody who we were, they released that lady that afternoon.
Good.
Presence makes a difference. If they know that they've got a civil rights organization coming down their neck, they're going to let go. They are going to let go.
The gall of that judge to say it is your constitutional right to go to jail.
I thought it was kind of funny there for a minute. I was like, really? Not ha-ha, but like rhetorically, really?
That's insanity.
That's you have the constitutional right to go to jail for contempt of court. Bailiff, lock, take her out.
That's a violation of her constitutional rights.
But see, there's these judges, you know,
that's
and God
treason.
love and bless them, but
he committed treason, that judge.
Well, I have told people for years, don't piss the judge off.
Yeah.
I don't care how mad you are.
Right.
That's who's going to make your decision. And if you piss him off, he's got the power and the authority to do what he wants to do, whether he or she, the judge, is a good judge or a bad judge. I've went to them many times on many different cases with a common sense approach.
Yep.
Just common sense. It's got the law to back me, but just common sense presentation.
Mm-hmm. A lot of it is presentation. Every time. Yep.
I don't care what people think about what works and what doesn't. I'm telling you, a common sense approach with the law backing you, not pissing people off. That's what wins your game.
Yep. And
they might be a little mad or angry or twerk that you
but as long as you're polite, it's just like a phone call. As long as you're polite with them and
presentation.
And sometimes even that doesn't work, and that's when you want to have your appeal ready to file in the higher court.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I get a little sassy with them sometimes. And you know, I don't do anything or say anything that's going to get me thrown in jail for contempt of court.
Right.
But I do say, as the Citizens Commission advocate, the family advocate, I absolutely will say what needs to be said. Yeah. I've had lawyers for years say, well, you can't say that. And I said, why not? Well, you're not a lawyer. I said, exactly. That's why I can say what I'm saying, because I'm not a lawyer governed by the state bar of any state in the United States, right, nor the American Bar Association. So, yes, I can tell you what I just told you. I'm sorry it hurt your little feelings, but the truth is going to be said.
Right. Yeah, they can't sue on hurtphilioma.
Hurtphilioma. That sounds.
That came from Todd Clem, Bubba the Love Sponge show. A very controversial radio show, shock jock type of show. But he was always getting sued, because he used to talk about his personal life a lot on his radio show, which was sometimes really ridiculous. And so this one guy, like a former employee of his on his radio, ended up suing him, and Todd Clem, another guy, like him, hate him. He's definitely entertaining, and his crew is entertaining, but so he was calling out this one guy over and over and over again. The guy took him to court for defamation, and so Bubba the Love Sponge, a.k.a. Todd Clem, said, you can't sue me for hurtphilioma, okay? And so it became, in Florida, it became this, like, household term, hurtphilioma.
The equivalent of today's butt hurt.
Yeah, butt hurt.
Yeah. Say it again, Ted.
Hurtphilioma.
Hurtphilioma.
Yeah.
That's
a little bit more. It sounds a little bit more intelligent than butt hurt. It's something you could use in court too. I think they did. Hurtphilioma.
It sounds a lot more intelligent than butt hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, on that interesting note, we're just about out of time. Thank you all for watching. Again, if you want to speak at the event or perform at the event, make sure to get in touch with Belinda or I, like literally within the next 2 minutes before the end of the show, in 1 minute and 30 seconds. So you can get on the schedule. So tomorrow morning it's dispersed. All right. Anything to say about that before we head out of here, Belinda?
I want just the performers to please confirm.
Okay.
Speakers can be adjusted, but I really need to make sure we've got Joyce the Voice, Cecilia Elam performing, Melanie Lee.
Sheila, yeah. So,
Melanie Lee.
Have we been in touch with Melanie yet? No. Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, I'll try one more time to get in touch with her. If not, then we'll just have to. I don't know. You're right.
Gotta go.
Okay. Have a great night, everybody. I love you. See you tomorrow, live at 5.
Now
concludes
the hour of action.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it.
For depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury.
To subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws.
All experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed.
But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security.
We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
And we're going to take our country back from these people.